Hi, I'm Arati. When I bought this little mini Urban Sketchers kit, which I've reviewed before on my channel, I really like the small format which fits 12 little half pans. So I also ordered myself an empty version in the gold colorway, and it has spaces for 12 half pans. I have bought half pans to put in here, and today I'm going to fill this with 12 custom gouache colors. I might use one or two pure mixing colors, but the majority of them will be colors that I will mix myself, and I'll show you how to do that through the course of this video. I have here all of my gouache tubes. I also have my current gouache palette that I've been using, which is just a simple empty palette from Jackson's Art. I think I've shown this before in my Gouache 101 video, which I will link for you up in the cards and down in the description box below. It is quite murky because I've been using it a lot lately for my Peachtober drawings, which I'll show you in a minute. And when I'm at home, I also use this larger gouache palette, which also I filled with some of these gouache colors and a couple of mixed colors, also shown in my Gouache 101 video. I'm going to be using my Pith Lumia sketchbook to do all the swatches in this and show you the colors that I'm mixing. I've also got a little spare sheet of glass that actually came out of a frame that broke, and I've popped masking tape across the edges so that it's not sharp and doesn't cut me. I'm going to use these to mix my colors, and this is actually the top of a biscuit tin that someone gifted me. I've just used the packing paper from inside. I think it was M&S collection chocolates or biscuits or something. And I've put my glass on top. So I have a hard surface and a white background for me to see the colors. I will also be using a palette knife to mix my colors. This is easier than using a brush because the bristles might get ruined and paint might go into the ferrule and then ruin it. So when you mix with a brush, you don't want the paint going up in there. If you don't have one of these, you can just use a regular knife, a butter knife, but then keep that butter knife only for paint mixing. Don't use it for food again. So, how do you decide what colors to use in a palette so limited as only 12 pans? This is a kit that I'll be taking out to sketch en plein air. It will be really minimal. It'll be a sketchbook, my water brush, a bottle of water, this all in my pocket, or at most a small backpack. So, the best way to do this is to go through your recent work. In my case, the Peachtober prompts. If you're not sure what Peachtober is, it's a 30-day October challenge run by Furry Little Peach. She's an illustrator. Her actual name is Shandiances, and she's Australian. So these are the prompts, and I've been doing one per day. If you watched my orange video, you would have seen this drawing that I did in just orange. Now, because I didn't have any darks, I had to use a brown to complete it, but I really liked the concept of this drawing of having the dog and my little dog person in front of an oak tree. And since the first prompt was acorn, I decided to do the first Peachtober as acorn. So it's the same theme as the orange drawing, but there's an acorn in the hand, and the concept is things my dog and I do in the woods and fields. I've just zoomed out a little bit because the sketchbook is quite large and you wouldn't be able to see the full drawings once I flip. The next one was kite and slug, gingham and poppy, ring and strawberry, leaf and rope, critter and seagull, bark and marble. There's only been 13 days so far, so I will show you the rest eventually. But what you can notice in these paintings is my color palette. The orange that I'm still obsessed with, the browns, this blue color, lots of white, and this very light linden green. So these are generally the colors that I'm going to have in my palette, as well as a couple extra, maybe a pink and a yellow that might come in handy. So the best way to choose a color palette is to go through your recent drawings and paintings, your sketchbook or your actual original work, and see what colors you've been using and go with those. You can always add more later if you feel the lack of something, but you are guaranteed to be using the colors that you have been using over the past few weeks and months. I've brought out my little swatch card of the colors that are in this palette so you can see what they are. They're quite grimy in here, but that's what happens as I'm working, and there's no help for it. I will clean it up at some point and use that paint in my everyday sketchbook. So I've got buff titanium and white, which will probably remain as is because they're mixing colors. And I will definitely have linden green and orange unmixed because they're perfect as they are. I always find it's not dark enough. So I'll mix that with indigo, which is what I'm constantly doing in this spot here. And the same with the sepia, I'm always mixing it with the indigo to create a darker brown. So let me pop the colors that I'm not going to mix in, and I'll be back in a moment. There's cadmium orange. As this dries, it will settle a little bit, so I might have to refill it after a couple of days. I won't be able to use this immediately. I will have to wait at least 48 hours before I can take it out, otherwise it will be a complete mess in my bag. Color 2 is buff titanium. Color 3 is permanent white. Color 4 is linden green. Now let's get to mixing, because these are, I think, probably the only 4 colors that I will have unmixed. For the olive green with indigo mix, I'm going to use the new gouache that I got, which is Royal Talons. This is olive green 620. I can approximate how much will fit into that tub. I'm going to put some olive green there, and I'm going to mix that with Winsor & Newton indigo, which is my absolute favorite dark blue. Approximately the same amount. Doesn't matter if it's separating a little bit, because I'm going to mix that in. I might need to add a little bit more blue depending on how dark it gets. All you do is take your palette knife and mix it. Now, can you see why I'm doing it here? Because it's so much easier than mixing it in a little pot like that. Here we are. I'm going to really mix it in. It's kind of like mixing a batter, almost. It will be quite liquidy. Okay, and now I need a little brush to swatch it. That is a nice dark green, maybe a little bit more indigo. Make sure it's nicely mixed, because otherwise when it dries you'll get streaks or patches within it. All right, so here we are. It is a little bit messy, but I can always wipe the side off later. There we are. You can see I've got almost exactly the amount needed, and of course it will shrink a little bit as well. This way you can also make sure you don't waste any, or very little at most. So there you are. Gently wipe the sides so I don't get green paint everywhere. Make sure you do wipe your palette knife between them. I did scrape off as much as was possible, so there's actually very little paint wasted on here. Now, what I generally do with this is prep my pages like this. There might not be too much paint left, but if I take a larger brush and just plop it on, then I can use this page for something else. And there's almost zero paint wasted. Yeah. And I'll probably take this page out with me and use it with that. So we're in the same color family in general. And then what remains just gets wiped off neatly. Remember that it's perfectly fine to waste that paint if you want to. I just prefer not to. So we have our dark green. The next color I want is my sepia dark mix. I have kind of run out of sepia, so I might have to use my Van Dyke brown to do this instead. It's kind of similar and it'll give me a similar result. Yep, there's absolutely none left in here. So that one can go in my empties. Is there enough sepia in here? No. Okay, so let's go with the Horadam Gouache Van Dyke brown. Again, it's separated slightly, but that's okay. I'm going to go with less this time because I don't want to have an overflowing pan like that one. And for this one, I'm actually going to use the new Royal Talons Prussian Blue, number 566, to mix with it. Just a little bit, just to make it slightly darker. And mixy, mixy, mixy. I might have mixed too little of this one, but I'm pretty sure I might have to add more brown or more blue. Yep, it's gone too green. So definitely need more brown in this. If you know that your paint is liable to crack, you can add a drop of glycerine into it. I know that these aren't really going to crack, these particular colors, so I'm not adding this. But if you want to, you could. Or if you find that they crack after a day of drying, then you can just liquidize them again with a little bit of water, pop a drop of glycerin in, and they'll crack a little bit less. Still too green. Maybe more brown. We'll see. Might have to do an extra pan of this and put it away in my other palette. It's a bit too much blue. Or maybe I just need to go back to the indigo instead of using the Prussian blue. Third time's the charm. Still green. Maybe it's the brush. Hang on. Yep, it's still a little too green. But I really like that green, actually. I might just keep that because that's a good foil to that. In fact, let's mix a tiny bit of Naples Yellow Italian. Make it slightly more opaque. Test that. Yeah, I really like it. It's so nice. See, now I've made a mistake about the paint color and I've got a really lovely color. Okay, so we have 2 greens in there. And because I'm going to mostly be drawing nature and painting trees, I'm perfectly happy with this. The consistency of this is also a little bit better than the other one. Oops, also slightly overfull. I'm just going to put this little extra bit into my palette here, mix it with the green, and use it later. The other green I use a lot is this kind of weird mix. So it's like linden green mixed with buff titanium. And I mix that so much that I feel like I want a separate pot of it when I go out painting. So I don't have that much mixing space in here. So I would rather have the colors that I use often, for trees in particular, already mixed. Color mixing number 3 will be this linden green with a little bit of the buff titanium, not too much because I don't want it to be muddy, but I also want a little bit of the Horadam gouache olive green, which is slightly different color, just a smidge. So let me swatch these out for you first. We have buff titanium, linden green, very yellowy green, and the Horadam gouache olive. It's kind of like a muddy linden green now. It's not so bright, but it's also not super dull. So we are all 3 mixed in. Absolutely beautiful color. Look at that. And then if you put it on top of other colors, it looks amazing. So let's load up my little pot. So there we have the darkened linden green. I might actually move these over slightly and pop it next to that one there. After that, one of the colors that I've been using is this slight kind of mushroomy red. It's like a toadstool almost. So to get that, I'm going to have to do a little experimenting because I mixed that one sort of on the go. So let's add a little bit of orange. Let's use this new burgundy color from my Mer gouache that I got in Italy. If you haven't seen my last video, this is in that, along with a tour of Pellegrini in Brera, which is an art shop in Milan. Then I'm going to add a little bit of one of my favorite colors, which is pale rose blush. And let's see what we can get with this. Make sure you mix in different directions so it gets well combined. You're pushing and then dabbing. A little bit of yellowish tinge, so maybe let's use that Naples yellow Italian a little bit more. I'm not going to make too much of this one because if it doesn't work for me, I might need to change it and I don't want a whole pan then. It would never be wasted, but I still don't want to use a whole pan's worth. That is a beautiful color. Yes, maybe a little bit touch more yellow do I want? It is autumn now, so this is very much a color that I will use. Perhaps I might add a little bit of Holbein lemon yellow, just a bit there. Yes, I think that's gonna work beautifully. Just adds a little bit more warmth and not so cool. So I think that's beautiful. Just a bit warmer. So let me fill that little tub and I'll come back to you in a minute. So now from this we can tell we have my buff titanium and my white. I've got my nice bright orange and my linden green, which we didn't mix. Then I've got a slightly darker linden green, my really dark green with a bluish tone, and my dark brownish green. Now I didn't do my brown, so we're going to do that. And we also have this sort of like pinky orange color that is going to come in really handy for autumnal foliage. Let's get that brown sorted, shall we? I really do wish there was some sepia left in here. Maybe there is. I'm going to have to rebuy this. Oh, yep, managed to get some out. Let's actually mix some Van Dyke into this, make it a little bit darker. You can see the 2 tonal differences, or maybe you can't through the camera. Let me just swatch them for you. So here is Van Dyke brown, sepia, lighter brown, darker brown. But I do prefer the sepia for some reason. So let's go back to my original. Let's not mess with my previous practices. And let's add the indigo to this. Just a smidge. We're just making it darker. We're not making it green like I did there. Although that was a really happy accident. So I'm quite pleased with that. Let's just swatch that. And here we have the dark brown that I want. Yay! Lovely. And let's see how that goes with those. Very nice. Over the linden green. And with that, very nice. I'm so happy with this. Okay, note to self. Don't substitute Prussian blue for the favored indigo. Let's fill this corner one with that. I might need a little bit more of this because it's not quite a full half pan. but I can just mix as I go as well if I run out. Next color that I need is probably a grey, because it is grey and cloudy lately. One of the colors I love to use is this Neutral Grade 3 by Winsor & Newton gouache. So here's what this looks like by itself. And I'm going to mix that pale rose in to give it a slightly warmer tone. So here's the pale rose. And together, they will be rather pretty. Again, I don't want too much of this because I won't be using it too much. And if I find that I need to change it, it's easier to change a smaller amount than it is a larger one. So here we have the mix. Just a slightly warmer version of that. Warmer and lighter as well. Corner one. Next, I need a yellow because a lot of the leaves are changing to kind of a like golden yellow. So I'm going to mix a little bit of Hansa Yellow Light with Winsor & Newton Cadmium Free Yellow. This by itself I could use, but I find it a little bit too dull for those particular leaves. Like it's slightly more orangey. It's not quite that slightly yellowy orange, not an orangey yellow. I don't know if that makes sense. Yep, that's a bit better. Bit more maybe lemon yellow. This is Horadam Gouache Lemon Yellow. Yep, so lemon yellow. Yes, now we're getting to it. I'm sorry, I get really excited about mixing colors because I very rarely use the paint straight out of the tube. I'm always mixing it with something. I always like to swatch and then see how it is when it's dry. So this was the original cadmium-free yellow. You can see it's way more orange than that, and it's slightly more lighter and brighter. And if we use it on top of our other colors, we want it to work well with those. Oops, on top of that. Oh, look at that. Gray sky with yellow leaves, that would be fantastic, wouldn't it? And then that adds a nice highlight for that deepened linden green as well. Okay, happy with that. So before I fill that last little pot, it's important to swatch out the colors that I've got and see how they go together before I actually make that final decision. So I am actually going to put them into this as I swatch, and hopefully they'll all match up. So here we have the grey mixed with the pale rose. Oopsies. Note to self, wash brush properly. Okay, so let's try that again. There's the grey. The buff titanium, I know what this looks like, but we're going to swatch it anyway. I might decide that it's too similar to that and change this a little bit. We'll see. Right next to that. White. It will show up on this pith paper a little bit. I'll show you a close-up in a minute. It's a little bit fiddly putting these in. There we are. Spare pot, the linden green. Absolutely beautiful color, this. Actually, maybe I'll put the greens in this section so that if they get messy, then they're not in the middle, quite likely to get messy. Okay, this is the muddy linden green. Such a beautiful color. It's not as opaque as I would like. Maybe I might mix in some Naples yellow or something, should I? We'll see. We'll see. I'll take it out, use it, and then see what amendments I need to make. Then we have the super dark green. Definitely overfilled that pot. This is the cooler green. There we are. And then this is that brownish green that I accidentally made. It's a really dark olive, I feel like. Yeah, so nice. That's going to be tricky to fit in there. There we are. And then we have the lovely, I'm going to call it a flamingo orange actually. It's very similar to the color that I was gifted by April in watercolors. That's lovely. Let's pop that. Then we have the pure cadmium orange. You know what this looks like. And also remember, in addition to these, I will be taking some markers and some pencils. Not just these, because that's how I work. Then the yellow mix. After using this, I might actually add a little bit more lemon yellow. We'll see how it performs outdoors. There we are. Satisfying little click. And my super dark brown. Yep. These are so similar, but in person you can really see the difference. I could use this to darken either of those colors. Let's pop that in. This is such a teeny tiny thing, and my fingers are way too squidgy for this. But there we go. There we are. Tough to tan. Now, for the last color, This is important. Do I just want to take a pure indigo or do I want to add something else? This is such an autumnal color palette. I don't know if indigo is the right thing for this. Is it? Or do I need a sort of different color? Do I need a black? I don't think I need a black because I have that. What do I need? Oh dear. Here's the point where the final decision is somehow the most difficult because I think I have all the colors I need. But what if there's one color that I've missed out, you know? Should I take a bright yellow? No, we've got the linen green. I don't really need a bright yellow as such. I don't have a red, but I don't really use red that much in my work. Should we make like an ochre color? What happens if I mix that and that? Let's just see if I mix the gray and the really dark greeny brown. Oh, that's lovely. Very nice. So that basically gives me a dark gray. So by process of elimination, I don't really need a dark gray. I don't need a purple. I love my turquoise, but I don't really need my turquoise. So maybe I will fill that with indigo for now. Or should I take ultramarine? I don't know. In this season, I don't think I need ultramarine. But yeah, okay. Let's just fill that with indigo. Not too much, so that I can change it later if I want to. So I should have swatched it there. Oh well. Yes, I think that's a good mix. So here are the colors that I am popping in this little box. Now the other question is, do I want it this way or that way? I'm probably likely to mix more whites in here. So okay, I'll have it that way. And there is my little mini gouache kit in the Roman Szmal travel set. So I think these colors will really go well together. Here are the swatches. Let me bring this close to you first. Look at that. Beautiful colors. It will take about 48 hours at least to dry before I can take it out. So I won't be showing what I'm doing with this in this video, but in one of my future videos, I will take you along with me outdoors sketching. And here are the colors in the palette. There's white there, which is not really that visible. If you want to know all the colors that are in my gouache palette and in my gouache collection, go and watch my Gouache 101 video, which I will link for you in the description and up in the cards above. If you make a palette that's mixed like this, please let me know what your favorite colors are. I'm always looking for new inspiration and hopefully this video provided that for you. Thanks so much for watching. Here are some more videos you might find interesting. Bye!